iOS 18.2 has a brand new feature that lets people do something that is probably going to make them question everything that came before in the Apple ecosystem and everything that comes after. This is a true inflection point. No, I'm not talking about being able to skin all the icons a certain color or do things like create colorful cactuses. I'm actually talking about the ability to set new defaults for your iPhone apps. Before we get into it, you gotta check out the newsletter. It's free, comes out on Fridays. It'll take 30 seconds to get you up to speed on everything that you might care about in the Apple realm and beyond. And if you haven't checked out my courses, now's the time to do it. And right now you can pre-order my course on AI so you can take advantage of all the opportunities coming your way. I'm gonna link this all up down below. So already in the past, Apple's been edging in this direction, probably due to some outside pressure rather than, hey, let's bring this to people because they would like it. And the reactions, as you can imagine, are very different. Some people are super excited about this and they're like, anything that lets me personalize and customize things more is a very welcome change. And actually, when I hear myself saying that, that's obviously a very, in the past, Android-like sentiment. Android and non-Apple things, PC, the PC world, that's always been a very customizable realm. And Apple has typically been a little bit more locked down. The Apple brand has always thrived on having an Apple experience where Apple does all the heavy lifting for you and you kind of just sit back and relax and enjoy. But this tagline is starting to make a lot more sense here, yours truly, in light of this new default apps interface where you can go in and here's where things get a little bit spicy, dilute that Apple experience if you so choose. Now, that's completely subjective. If you preferred Apple to sort of be in the driver's seat and have everything on autopilot for you, and you were just the recipient of a really nice, highly curated experience, if that worked for you in the past, then it can still work for you now, right? Just having the option to go in and change things, and we're gonna get into what all exactly you can change because it's expanded beyond like the two options that already had come, then, the world is an open book of possibilities then for you. A lot of the updates that you saw Apple talking about already were kind of skin deep, so to speak. It was very visual, aesthetic. The default apps thing is a different beast though. It lets you get to the core of what a phone experience is, and it lets you load in some non-Apple services as the defaults. And it's funny because think to yourself right now, do you like this or do you hate it? Or do you not really care? Whatever you think, you're not really on the right side. There isn't really a right side necessarily here in terms of like the overall sentiment. I think people are very mixed in their reactions to this. It's not like everyone's excited or everyone's disappointed because there's trade-offs, there's pros and cons here. And Apple is, if nothing else, changing drastically with this particular measure here. So you can change the Mail app, you can change the messaging app, you can change how your calls are handled. You can change your call filtering. That's a big deal. You can obviously change the browser app. That was already something you could do. You can change your password manager, your default. You can even change your default keyboard. And this is already turning into a pattern, right? First it was the browser and like the Mail app, and now it's all these other things. And that means in the future, it might be even spreading to other areas as well. You can envision Apple letting you switch out, the AI bot, the LLM of your choice from ChatGPT, for instance, to something else that maybe aligns more with your worldview. So maybe it's kind of going to be a snowball effect here, which is weird. You're either going to be really excited here and you're going to kind of be in awe that Apple is loosening their grip on something that they've had such a tight grip on for so many decades. But if you're not in awe, then you're probably going to be kind of outraged. You're going to be angry because you feel like maybe this is Apple betraying its longstanding ethos. And really, again, mixed reactions. Some people are all about this. Some people are kind of sitting back, stunned, But a lot of this, again, comes from pressure, particularly coming from the EU. And a lot of people would have liked to have seen Apple stand the ground. But companies are sort of like people. If you put a lot of pressure on, they oftentimes end up caving. Not all people and not all companies. I'm curious if you think that this change could actually push some Android users to the iPhone for this quote unquote newfound openness. If nothing else, I think it opens up the realm of competition a little bit more. So if you buy into the idea that competition is good, people are battling for a consumer's attention. In this case, they're battling for the right to be the default app in any given category. And actually, you could see people come in and say, hey, replace all the Apple suite of stuff with not just the Google suite of stuff. A lot of Apple users wouldn't want to do that anyways, but there's the potential for another company to come in and replace every single one of those slots. It's kind of a whole new world. On the browser side of things, there hasn't really been a super awesome, great browser for iOS that's really just blown the socks off of anything else that was available out there. I think that's different on the email side of things. And there's all kinds of cool email solutions that you could go with if you wanted to set a default there, like Hey, for instance. Whatever your actual viewpoint is, though, I do think that we're going to see more indie developers, smaller developers, be able to be energized to come in and play in these realms now. And I think probably that will end up being a good thing, ultimately, that particular thing. If Apple's opening up on some stuff, does that mean you're going to be able to open up the chassis on your Mac and do some replacements for some of the components there that you didn't order the right way or didn't have money for at the time when you place your order? I guess I probably wouldn't count on it, but I think this is one of those instances where the Android users are going to be like, hey, iOS people, iPhone people, welcome to the club. Thanks for joining us. We've been here forever. Hope you like it. Maybe you'd like to check out Android now that you're getting a taste for some of the stuff, some of the freedoms that Android has had for a while. This is actually a pretty big deal, though. I mean, this directly impacts how people interact with their devices daily. And this could potentially alter app usage patterns and user loyalty, I think. That's what Apple's worried about. Short term, I think prepare to be bombarded by marketing for app companies that are vying to be your default in any given category or multiple categories. I think that's just going to happen, of course. Long term, I think you're going to have less in common with other iPhone users. There's going to be such a personalization wave coming, I think, that already, like if you think about it, if you go look at somebody else's iPhone and you kind of compare, it's very different. In the old days, you had a lot more in common with other iPhone users. These days, what's in common? You have something called an iPhone, but the inside, the experience is vastly, vastly different than the person sitting next to you. And is that good? Is that bad? I don't know. I feel like a lot of society is fragmenting, especially in the digital realm anyways. And there's just, like, think about TV shows. There's so much stuff to watch out there. It's not just on TV. I would include like TikTok and YouTube and stuff as stuff that people consume. There's a lot less that people can just talk about and fire up a conversation with everybody, because it's not like back in the day when there was 3 networks on TV where people watch, and then at the water cooler, you would just talk about it and everybody saw it, So hit me with your opinion down in the comments. Is Apple's new update the beginning of the end for the walled garden, the famous walled garden, or is this just kind of a clever illusion of freedom?